listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your new favorite podcast for everything Bills and Sabres. What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your favorite podcast for all things Bills and Sabres, with the pals Nigel and Jake again this evening. Episode 46 coming at you. Quick reminder to follow our social medias. You can find us at the handle Let's Go Buff Pod. That's Buff with 2 F's on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. Let's say hello to my partner in crime here, Jake. Let's get your live reaction. Please go look at what Tom just texted the group.
I certainly will.
It's very entertaining for me because we just had this conversation.
we did. He's clairvoyant. He knew that we were talking about me forgetting to pause the opening music for the loop around. So I got it today. Tom, thank you for the reminder.
And well done by you, Jake.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, how you doing?
I'm good. Other than getting bullied by my friends, I'm good.
Well, what else is new?
Yeah, man, I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm great, bro. Great. Tuesday at work. It's I have no more students for the rest of the school year. Band stuff is like done, so it's just like all of the trillion end of the year horrible, terrible, monotonous things like inventory and cleaning instruments and cleaning instrument cases and trying to get the instruments back from the kids, and it's just essentially herding cats for the next 3 weeks. So not crazy fun times, but it is what it is. It's all right, I guess.
I believe that. Yeah, herding cats is a great way to put that, I think.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of students together.
Pretty accurate. Well, brother, should we enjoy ourselves a nice little beverage here?
I think we should. End of the workday. Let's get into it.
Hell yeah, buddy. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Hell yeah. What do you got there, buddy?
I have a Voodoo Ranger IPA.
Ooh, dude, I actually have one of those in my fridge and I didn't get it.
How funny would that be if we grabbed the same beer?
That would have been sick, dude. I would have loved that.
That's not happened yet, but maybe. What did you end up grabbing today?
I grabbed myself a lovely little Trogs beer. Just their flagship Perpetual IPA. That's a good one.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had that. I didn't know that was their flagship.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's their flagship IPA. I'm not positive. Flagship IPA, maybe not their like main flagship. But it's a great beer.
I believe it. They have some other good ones. Yeah.
Yeah, they got some good stuff. All right, dude. Shall we involve ourselves here?
Yeah. So we talked goalies and defense last week. Set us up. What are we broaching today?
We are going to be discussing before we just got here like 10 minutes ago, we thought today was just going to be wingers, and then we chatted about it, and we decided we're just going to lump all of the forwards together for this episode, because next week there may be a slightly special surprise podcast coming at you guys, so stay tuned for that. And then the following week, we're going to have to talk about the draft. So we decided that today we are going to just lump in all the forwards to finish up our sort of quick little state of the roster situation in terms of forwards on the Sabres currently, but also forwards that are in the system. So this is a tough kind of conversation to have because we acknowledge that on a lot of teams, including the Sabres, centers and wingers will change positions regularly, right? So like there might be times where Tage Thompson ends up being on the wing or whatever. So we acknowledge that. For this exercise, we are going to call Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Peyton Krebs, and we think he's probably going to be off the roster, but just in case, Tyson Jost, we're considering those 4 guys centers because that seems to be where they primarily play 99.9% of the time with the Sabres. So we're going to call those guys centers. But yeah, we just wanted to get ahead of anybody, being like, well, the guys don't always just play the wing. We recognize that. We've been watching hockey a long time. We know. But in order to do exercises like this, sometimes you got to get a couple concrete things in there. Am I right, Jake?
100% correct. And the other thing, we know that guys like Matt Savoie, for example, plays center 100% of the time for 100% of the games that he's in junior. he's not going to be a center at the NHL level. He's probably going to switch to wing. That's
Yeah.
why we're doing all the forwards positions. Be damned. We're putting him in the blender today.
Yeah. So, Jake, I'm gonna ask you here. Do you want to follow the planning doc as is, or do you want to jump down and actually do like discussing our potential roster? That just
I want to, Nigel. The things in this planning doc are structureless. Yeah, let's jump where we want to. What jumps out to you? Start us off.
I almost want to discuss where we see the depth chart heading into next season, taking into consideration guys we don't think are going to be on the team anymore, like Gergensons, like Tyson Jost, situations like that. I kind of want to start there. What do you think? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
That sounds great.
So we've identified a couple needs heading into next year that I want to start off by talking about. And we think, first off, a top 6 winger is a massive, massive, massive need for this team. So as the depth chart is laid out right now, I probably should start with that. We have blank at left wing, Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch. Second line is Peterka, Cousins, Quinn. We like that. Third line is Skinner, blank, Benson. Fourth line is Greenway, Krebs, blank. Right? So, and I want to get ahead of something here too. I'm not married to like anybody in the bottom 6 aside from Zach Benson. If any of those guys weren't on the team to start the year, I would be okay with that. Like if Greenway's not here or whatever, because I think the bottom 6 needs a major retooling. But we're kind of operating right now under the assumption that that is what the depth chart looks like. So in terms of
yes, wait. Sorry, I want to get it in front of anybody bitching at us too. We don't think this is what opening night lineup will look like. This is who is in the system right now and trying to identify where some needs are and how they might get filled.
Yes, thank you. So the blank spots that we have right now are that top line left wing with Thompson and Tuch, third line center with Skinner and Benson, and then we also are picturing somebody new on the fourth line at right wing now.
A bottom 6 forward, yeah.
Yeah. So from the list that we have on here, Jake, of all the forwards that played games for the Sabres this year, and I'm not going to go down that entire list right now, unless do you feel like we really should? Nah. From that list, can you pick out guys that you are pretty sure won't be on the team next year?
Yeah, definitely. Well, low-hanging fruit, Victor Olofsson has come out. He said he's gone. He's trying free agency, and he should. For him and the team, he's gone. I think Eric Robinson is probably not going to be retained.
I would say if he is, he's like the 13th forward.
Yeah, perhaps. I think maybe between him and Jost, I think I'd rather resign Jost.
I feel differently about that. That's interesting.
That is interesting. Okay. But I think one of those two is gone. Can we agree on that?
Totally.
As part of the conversation?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think those guys are gone. And then Gergensons, he's the longest tenured member of the team, but he's rumored to be trying out free agency. We'll see. I feel like we heard that rumor whenever his last deal was up last year. So, I don't know. I feel like he might actually be gone this time. Do you feel the same?
Yep. We're in complete agreement. So to like Gergensons, Olofsson, either or both Eric Robinson and Tyson Jost. Yeah. So I think we're pretty much agreed that those 4 will not be on the team next year. Or go ahead.
And that doesn't include forwards that were traded away at the deadline, Casey Mittelstadt and Kyle Okposo. I don't think either of those guys will be back. Mittelstadt, definitely not. Okposo, maybe could see coming back. I know he liked his time here a lot, but I think if he wins the Cup with Florida, I also wouldn't be surprised if he retires.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't think there's any chance Edmonton is going to be able to hang with Florida. I'm not even sure they're going to win a game. They might squeak out one, but based on those first 2 games, dude, I don't like their chances at all. I think Okie is going to win a cup and ride off into the sunset. So
I'd be thrilled for him if that happens. But
I would too.
But I think so. There's another 2 guys that played pretty major roles for the team that are gone. So there's a lot of opportunity to turn over the structure of the forwards, which is welcomed because you mentioned it last week. We tried the don't touch anything, hands off approach, and it did not work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of those guys are in the bottom six that we talked about being gone, and I think that's the focus. One of the focuses for the team. A third line center is imperative, and just getting in some newer, established players that can round out your bottom six and provide some scoring punch down the lineup it is paramount for their success next year.
For sure. In terms of forwards, when it comes to the cap, dude, I mean, man, oh man, aside from Jeff Skinner's contract, which is egregiously bad, I get why it is what it is. Like when he had that monster season, your hands were kind of tied. You almost had to pay him. Outside of that, dude, these contracts, assuming that this past season was an outlier for Dylan Cousins, are so unbelievably reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I mean, really, Tage Thompson at 7-1 is a steal. Cousins, assuming that last year was an outlier, like I keep saying, 7-1 should be appropriate for him with what I think he's going to end up offering in the two-way game. Alex Tuch is absolute theft at under $5 million. And the rest of these guys, Jordan Greenway, $3 million. I think that might even be a little steep for him, but yeah, it's just such a reasonable group of contracts for the forwards. Do you have any thoughts there, Jake?
They are, similar to the defense. It's going to get expensive very quickly. With Quinn and Peterka are up after this year. They're both making about $800,000 this year, under $1 million. Those numbers are going to jump. I hope they re-sign both of those guys longer term. But they've proven that they're willing to do that with players like Thompson and Cousins. I think both of those guys. Peterka in particular, to me, is a core member of this team, and he should be. Quinn, I think, is as well. He's had some injury history and some rockiness to start his career. When he's been in and playing, he's looked phenomenal. He's been incredible. The injury history is what gets me a little concerned to hand out, an 8-year term.
100%.
Anyways, point being, you're correct. Yeah, the cap situation is good. The Skinner boat anchor is not great. I think we should dive into Skinner a little bit more. But let's talk about Dylan Cousins. You brought him up, and you said if this last season was not the norm, if it was an aberration, do you think that's true? Which Dylan Cousins are we getting this fall?
I am going to go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that this past season was an outlier, because the prior season, while I think the prior season is where you can expect him to be. Maybe not quite that much, but what you get with Dylan Cousins is a really, really, really good two-way game. I think 2 years ago, what did he have? Like 35 or 36 goals? Was it around there? Or maybe 30?
Yeah, 31.
31. Okay, so yeah, in the 30s, which I think is probably his peak. I think he peaked pretty early, but this past season he regressed so much. I don't think that is where his game is going to be. I really, really, really think that. I mean, he's 23 years old. Overnight, he started making $7 million. I think that pressure probably got to him, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, him and the rest of the team, they talked about that.
So I'm going to go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that while maybe, he's not a lock for 30 goals every season, I think 20 to 25 is probably more where we can expect him, with a really strong defensive game. And probably, even with that 20, 25 goals, somewhere between 60 and 70 points is where I'd like to see Dylan Cousins, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's attainable. It seemed like he was a little snake bitten last year, and wasn't. He looked and felt like a different player than he had the year before. So I hope he can kind of cobble together a bit more consistency like he had the previous season. So
yeah, for sure.
If you're able to bank on him for 25 goals a year and chip in 30, 40 assists, I'd be happy with that too.
That's absolutely. Where do you stand on the idea of a Jeff Skinner buyout?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've seen, not from anyone in the team or anything, but just fans talking about buying out Jeff Skinner. I don't I don't love the idea of buying him out. I don't. I don't love the idea of buying him out unless you can sell me on specifically what you're going to do with those gained dollars and how you're going to deal with the recapture penalty that happens after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's enough of a liability to buy him out entirely. Like, is he worth $9 million? No, I don't think anyone is going to argue with that. But that's what he was signed for. That's what the team handed to him. It's not his fault that he's making $9 million. But yeah, I don't think he's struggled enough to warrant a full buyout. He's got 3 more years left. I think you could entertain that more as the contract gets older and you start feeling more of a cap crunch. But as far as a raw buyout, I'm typically opposed to that. If you need to move on from a player for salary reasons, I would rather find a way to trade them away rather than just a raw buyout. And I think you could. I think if you wanted to move on from Skinner, you could move on from him in a trade. You'd have to sweeten the deal a bit or include some other player with him. But I don't think he's a boat anchor of a player where he's unmovable because of that contract. And that's when you should buy out a player, is if they are unmovable. Think Suter and Parise's contracts in Minnesota, like those were untradeable contracts, you know. So I don't know. Do you agree? Do you have different thoughts on Skinner?
I see. I feel like it is untradeable unless you retain $5 million of that, or maybe 4.
And at that point, keep the player. So sorry, I agree. I don't want to trade him at all. Like I don't think, not because I think he's at the peak of his career, but I'd rather insulate him a bit more.
Yeah.
They acquire a top 6 forward like they're rumored to be doing and push him a little bit deeper in the lineup, where I think he can still be effective. I don't need him off the roster.
I do very much have the itch for him to be off the roster, and here's why. I am feeling very, very, very concerned that we are about to pay a player $9 million a year to be in our bottom 6. And I say that because I don't think I could, in a laboratory, build a more anti-Lindy Ruff player than Jeff Skinner. This guy has no two-way element to his game at all. He's an absolute defensive liability. And that concerns me with a coach like Lindy Ruff, who is, he'll just fucking scratch a guy and not think two ways about it. And I feel like Jeff Skinner is going to be a guy that ends up being scratched by Lindy Ruff to the tune of $9 million a season. I just don't think with this new coach, I don't think that's going to go well, that relationship. Maybe I'm completely wrong and it's totally fine. And what he needs is exactly what you just said, which is just to be a little bit further down the lineup. I just can't get myself to a spot where I feel like Lindy Ruff is going to be like, yeah, I want Jeff Skinner on the ice a bunch. That's the big concern that I have. And it would just be so nice to get rid of, because if you were going to pay Jeff Skinner now what he's worth, what are you paying him? 4.5 to 5.5, somewhere in there.
I think it depends which season of Jeff Skinner you're talking about too, because not like he's the year before he had a great year, right? He was impactful playing with Tuck and Thompson. So
let's say he's a UFA. I don't know. Let's say he's a UFA right now. He's looking for a new contract right now. What are you giving him?
Okay, fair enough. After last season, I think he'd probably earn $5 to $6 million on the open market.
I had 5 in my head. 5 years, or excuse me, 2 years, $5 million. I would pay Jeff Skinner right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's 32. He's not ancient. It's not unheard of for guys to be impactful into their 30s.
And he still skates super well, dude. His edge work is really cool. He's got that really, really, really unique skating style that, he does still do really well, and it gets him around guys. I've never seen anybody skate the way Jeff Skinner does. It's so weird, but it works for him. So I just, yeah, I don't know, man, because he still played with really good players last year,
He did,
and
yeah.
his production dropped so much. I mean, so many players did. So I guess it's not fair for me to pick out Jeff Skinner. I just, I see somebody making the argument of like, why are you bullying Jeff Skinner for this season he had and not Dylan Cousins? Well, I see a lot more two-way value with Dylan Cousins than I do Jeff Skinner.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree. He is very one dimensional. He needs to be put in area. And that was the biggest issue with Ralph Kruger and his utilization of Jeff Skinner is that he didn't put him in areas to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe fully that Lindy Ruff is a far better coach than Ralph Kruger.
Correct.
I hope you're wrong about their relationship and him potentially just scratching Skinner. Like that would be a mark of a bad coach to come in and just say, well, I can't use this player. What the fuck is he good for? I'm gonna scratch him. Like that's.
I don't think it would go like that, but I think 20 games into the season, if Jeff Skinner isn't back checking his balls off, Lindy Rupp is going to be like, "Fuck this guy," and he's gonna put him on the bench.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, he coached a super rush oriented and offensively minded Devils team recently. I think he's maybe not the Lindy Ruff we saw say goodbye to from Buffalo.
You could be totally right there. You could be.
It concerns me. I think we're not arguing that it's a concern for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, I pulled up the buyout calculator for the contract. If it was bought out today, or before the draft, before next season,
yep.
It looks like the buyout cost for the cap hit wise would be $1.5 million next year, $4.5 million in 25-26, $6.5 million in 26-27, and then would drop off to $2.5 million for the next 3 years. So you're talking about a 6-year cap hit for this guy that peaks at $6.5 million in 26-27. So in 3 seasons, it peaks at $6.5 million for a dead cap that's just gone. And that's kind of when I envision them needing to spend more to get there. So you're really only saving $2.5 million at that point. When at that point you could I don't know what happens when you buy him out then, or you try to trade 1 year of the contract. It's a lot more.
How many more years does he have on this deal?
3 years. He's got 3 years left on the contract,
including this coming season.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's so icky.
3 years left. Look, it's not great. I think he can still be effective. Like I don't know. And also like when that deal is up, I don't know. It becomes hairy when you need to re-sign Tuck, for example, in 2 years.
Tuck is going to be worth 6.5 easy.
Oh, more than that.
Probably, sure. Yeah.
So you got 2 years left of Tuck, and then you need to re-sign him, and that'll be Jeff Skinner's last year. I think personally, keep Skinner, keep him on the team for now. Reevaluate next year, reevaluate the year after. I envision like when you need to really give Alex Tuck a raise, for example, then you're in the last year of Jeff Skinner, and you platoon him off elsewhere depending on his efficiency on the ice.
Yeah. That's an interesting one to see how all that plays out.
For sure. And keep in mind, the $9 million is gross. It's disgusting. I agree. It's too much for him. It was signed. When was it signed? It was signed in 2019. The cap really hasn't risen much at all since then. It's been
it's
flat.
It's about to go up.
Yeah, it's rising $4.5 million this year. I anticipate it going up similar clips every year.
Me
so
too.
It's gonna get less and less yucky as the cap rises, and
That's
eventually it'll be off the books. It doesn't make sense. Like he's not. If you can convince me that there's a significantly better player that we can put in his position and not need that cap, then I'm interested. But I just don't think it makes sense to spend assets to get rid of a player that really isn't fundamentally dragging down your team. Like, is again? I'm not saying he's the best left winger in the league, but he's not useless. He's not dragging the team down, in my
No,
opinion.
he's not that. I do get pissed off watching him back check and play defense. I can't help it. I like when I like that's when your effort needs to be at the highest, and he just doesn't. And that to me, like for to the tune of $9 million a year, I'm like, ugh. But go ahead.
Take the number out. Take the number out. Yeah, he can score. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't bother me so much that he is a one-dimensional player. The thing that he does well is score.
It bothers me a lot less when he's putting the puck in the net, which he didn't do last year. But 2 years ago, I definitely wasn't bitching like this.
Agreed. Yeah, and when he was scoring 40 goals, he was the. Yep. Everyone was like, "Hey, pay him 10. Pay him 10."
It is tough right now, but yeah.
Like I hear you. Like I hear you that it's frustrating to watch him as a defensive player because that's not what he's good at. He's not a defensive player at all. But if he's able to be effective offensively, it doesn't bother me at all given his price tag.
It doesn't strike me as a and this is obviously you could argue about how much this is relevant to the Sabres in particular, but it doesn't strike me as a playoff style of play, right? Like look at the way the Florida Panthers play defense right now. Like can you picture? And maybe the playoffs make Jeff Skinner change his tune. You know, who knows? The guy's never played in the playoffs. I don't think. I think he still hasn't played a single playoff game, which is crazy. But maybe that triggers something new in him. I don't know. I just when I watch a team like Florida, and everybody's so like just ready to sacrifice everything for defense. And I get it's the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not game 40 in, February or whatever.
Yeah, Tuesday night in Winnipeg.
Exactly. Like that's a bitch. I can understand not wanting to get down in front of a slap shot on that game, but I don't know. Go ahead. Well, last thing on Jeff Skinner, then we should keep moving.
I agree with you. Maybe he wouldn't be the most effective playoff performer, but I think he would be an extremely entertaining playoff performer given how much he yaps at all the other players and shit. I think he'd be fun to watch in the playoffs. It's a shame he hasn't made it in yet.
Dude, okay. Very last thing. I swear. This is my $1 billion idea. Okay, dude, because I know I would pay a fortune for this, and I bet you would too. If HBO, dude, like I would pay for a service on HBO where like you are watching NHL games and like 6 guys from each team are all mic'd up and you're hearing the unfiltered shit talk. Yeah. I would pay, I mean, there's 82 games in a season for each team. I'd pay $300 without even thinking about for that season, for a season of that.
I think that would be so entertaining, but also knowing a little bit about what's said on the ice, there's no way the players want that shit out there.
Well, I bet you like a company like HBO, like could I mean, yeah, players probably don't want it out there, but then if the league was seeing some of that revenue, dude, like, I'd be so entertained by that, dude.
I'd lap it up, dude. Absolutely.
Like to hear Marchand for a game, dude. Like I would pay really good money for that.
100%. Yeah. I'd lap it up.
Yep. All right. So we just talked forever about Jeff Skinner, but for me, in truth, the most interesting part of this entire conversation is the guys in the system. Now, we are not gonna talk about every single guy in the system, but Jake and I have selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that we think are the closest to making the team or maybe even being traded or something like that. But the 5 guys that are the closest to like being NHL ready, in our opinion. So in no particular order and nothing position-wise, those 5 guys are Lucas Rusek, Itzhak Rozan, Yuri Kulik, Matt Savoy, and Noah Ostlund. So that is a fascinating conversation to me because and I guess I'll kind of take the lead on this first, Jake, and give you my opinion first.
Mm-hmm.
I am at the point where I think, especially like in the bottom six, I want proven NHL veteran talent with like some guys that have some playoff experience. I'm at the point where these names that we're talking about, let's trade some of them to bring some more like already established talent in. And that's where I fall right now. Like I think this team is at that point where like this season, I think pretty unanimously is playoff or bust, right? And I think you get a lot closer to that if you maybe aren't the youngest team in the league for a change, and maybe trade out some of this youth, group of Noah Osland and pick 11 for, a really great established 25, 26-year-old bottom six player that is just gritty and nasty, but chip in 30 points in a season or whatever. That's where I'm at with these guys. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like all these guys. I think they're great prospects. I'm excited about them all, but you can't fit them all in, and you can't wait for them at this point. Like you said, it's playoffs or bust. You need. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. You're not going to like the trade package that goes out to bring in somebody,
Yep.
and that's usually the mark of what makes a trade fair.
Yes, exactly. And just a real quick thing on that. People have to remember that trades go both ways. Like you have to put yourself in the position of the opposite fan base. Like how would you feel? Right? So like and I think it's Paul Hamilton that says it, but like in order to get good players, you have to give up good players or elite assets. So like we need to be prepared for that as a fan base. Continue, Jake.
Yeah, I think of those 5 names you listed off, I think it's a failure if all 5 are here in the fall, because that means you likely didn't improve your roster as much as you could have.
Yeah,
and
I would totally agree.
To charge the roster up for the fall.
Are there any of those guys, Jake, that you would really like to see kept in the system and hopefully within the next year or two playing for the Sabres?
No. I mean, I guess it's the easy answer. No, I can get excited about all of them, but if you packaged up all 5 and told me the Sabres would make a deep run in the playoffs next year, I would do it. Maybe that's a little over dramatic, but yeah, no. Like if I guess Savoie and Kulik are the ones that I think are most exciting to me. I think I know them the best, maybe. I know Noah Osland excites me too, but he's just coming over to North America and is probably further along. I think the ones that are closest to maybe making the team are Savoie and Kulik and Roseanne too. I think he needs.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. But then I think back. Rusek spent I think 15 games in Buffalo last year, so he's right there too. He's a little older than the rest of them. I think maybe he. And I don't think he fetches as much trade value either. So
yeah,
honestly, no. I'm circling. I don't know how to answer your question because I don't mind if any of them are packaged up to improve the roster this fall.
And I'm in the same boat. I think for me right now, dude, of those 5 guys, the one that I would and I, again, not married to any of them. If I would be glad to see any of them packaged up to bring something back. But of the 5, I think Itzhak Roseanne makes the most immediate positive impact given the current state of the Sabres. I think he slots in really nicely in that bottom 6 and gives you a little bit of grit with some skill. I know I'm the king for hammering grit, but if I was going to pick one of those 5 guys, Rusek is decent, but I think Roseanne has more offensive upside. And will still fit into a bottom 6 role. Whereas I think the other guys, Roseanne or Kulik, Osland, Savoie, I don't think any of those guys are fitting into a bottom 6 role. Whereas I can see Itzhak Roseanne do it with some offensive upside.
Yeah, I see that as like a middle 6 guy.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. I see that.
And I think of all of them, it's tough, dude, because like for so long, everyone was hammering the table, myself included, to call up Yuri Kulik, What did he do in the second half of the season in the playoffs in the AHL?
Yeah, not a
Jake,
lot.
Jake, I went to every single home playoff game. He was absent. He was absent every single game. So now I don't know what to think of Yuri Kulik.
Yeah,
It's almost the Dylan Cousins conversation. Which one are you getting? Are you getting the one from this past season or the one from 2 years ago where he scored 40 goals?
as an
So
18-year-old
as
playing
an
against men.
yeah. So it's a really interesting conversation there. Um, Savoy, of all of them, like he's probably got the very, very, very highest ceiling. But I think in the NHL he's going to translate to a winger, and we've only seen him play juniors in the handful of games he played in Rochester last year. Frankly, he looked like shit. So he's obviously too good for juniors. He's putting up 1 billion points. His next step is clearly the American League, and maybe he just needs more time. But you know, he like if there was going to be one guy I was going to invest more time into, it would be Savoy. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not married to any of them.
Yeah, they all have their warts. They all have their upsides. I think it's we're not scouts. Like I think it'll be telling what the organization does this summer to see which ones they place the most value in. I don't know. I mean, but I think you made the point that you see Roseanne as somebody that could pitch in as a middle six winger and contribute some offensively in that position, whereas the others you see as more like Savoie, for example, is probably not a grinder player. He's probably
No.
he should be somebody that you're developing for your top six.
And where's he going to fit?
Where's he going to fit? Yeah, well, and he's certainly not ready for the NHL this year. You need to make the playoffs this year. So is that a guy that you say, okay, this guy can be really good, but we need to be good right now. Let's package him up and get somebody back for him. I think we'll see, but a failure if all five of these guys are in the system in the fall, because you should be leveraging these young players that can't impact your NHL team significantly right now to find somebody that's more established to impact your NHL team right now.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Absolutely 100%. I am so okay, dude. I just real quick pulled up a list of free agent UFA wingers. Or sorry, not necessarily UFA, but either UFA or RFA wingers. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to tell
Wingers.
you.
Are we
wingers.
talking about the so we've established the need for a top six center, and that's what Buffalo has come out basically without saying it. They've said they want to acquire a top six winger. The other spot that we've established that is a need is a Casey Middlestat replacement for the third line center.
Yep.
And then just forward depth for the bottom six. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to recap. So with that in mind, hit me with whatever name you just found.
Well, dude, I'm just looking at the list here, and I'm gonna like tell you all the guys that I would trade Matt Savoy for a top six role next year. Jake Gensel. Let's see here. It's actually not that many. my list just changed. My computer just caught up here. I was looking at a bigger list, and then I made my filter smaller, and now it's a lot less players. Because the next one after is like it's all old. The thing they're good players, but it's guys that I think are too old to give up for a Matt Savoy. Anthony Mantha, 29. Bertuzzi, 29. Teravainen, 29. Hoffman, 34. Pearson, 31. Duclair, So now you're starting to get a little. That's a little bit old for me to trade Savoy. So I don't know.
Didn't you say these are all free agents?
I tried to make it like that.
Well, we're not trading Savoy for a free agent. I mean, I think like.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
I wouldn't be opposed to going after some of those guys in free agency, but then it's cap dollars you're giving up, not a prospect. I think, and I think Kevin Adams has proven that he tends to go after and be interested in players that aren't necessarily the big fish or the most popular names that are on the market. So, dude, I have no idea who that player is or what his vision is. I think he's earned my trust for the most part to make that move and me feel okay about it. but I don't know who those players are. But I think it's somebody that's probably under contract that maybe we're not thinking of.
I would
That gets
imagine that
moved.
you're
But
correct. And I don't think I really like Kevin Adams does continue to surprise me, but I really can't imagine that he's going to trade away a 19-year-old Matt Savoy for a 29, 30-year-old top winger. Like, I would imagine it's going to have to be somebody that's like 25, 26, 27, somewhere in that age range.
yeah,
Would be my
yeah,
guess.
could be. I would agree with that. I think
Yeah.
the bottom six is where you dip into free agency and try to entice the right players to come. Again, I
Agreed.
don't know. I don't know what that like who those players are. There's so many, and there needs to be willingness for them to come to Buffalo too. But
Yep.
one name that does jump out to me, Jordan Martinook from Carolina would be a dream.
Awesome.
Bottom six forward.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like Dakota Joshua from Vancouver. I think we may have touched on him last week too, but he's in need of a deal. And I with Lindholm, with Zadorov, Vancouver's going to have some tough choices to make. So
yep. How do
somebody
they pay
like
him?
him could get squeezed out if they end up signing both Lindholm and Zadorov. I don't know, but
totally, dude.
But like that, Trennan coming off deal in Colorado could be somebody that'd be interested in. I don't know, man, but somebody, yeah, they need to inject more offense in the bottom six of their lineup. That is paramount to me.
Yes.
Like Olofsson had plenty of warts and could be effective offensively, but really didn't display that much this year. Gergensons is not an offensive player. Okposo at this point in his career was not an offensive player. They need players that can have a similar impact to the game that those guys did, maybe, but also put in more points and be more effective offensively. You need offense deeper in your lineup to go anywhere, and that was the missing factor this past year for me.
So if there was an overarching theme for the offense, I think we'd probably both agree that it's depth, right? We need to push talent down the roster.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would be in complete agreement.
Can we have a brief conversation about Mr. Peyton Krebs?
Hell yeah, we can. What's on your mind?
Well, he's in need of a new deal. He's an RFA. Yeah. He if we're talking about offense deeper in your lineup, he hasn't really done that. He's young. He's displayed great vision, great passing skills with the puck, but it's not. It hasn't felt like it's materialized a lot. He's not earning a ton of money. I don't think he would command a big contract by any means. I think you could probably sign him for under $2 million for a couple of years. But is he somebody that you dangle in a trade maybe as a pending RFA?
I think absolutely. I think I mean he's absolutely, and he could slot right into that bucket of guys that if he were to be gone, I'd be fine with that. Here's what I would do with Peyton Krebs personally. I would pay him. I'd pay him a 3-year, $1.75 billion a year bridge deal, and give him those three, because I've said it on here before, dude. I just have a feeling. That Krebs is a super, super late bloomer, because he's another guy that I've seen the flashes from, dude. I swear to God, I don't know how many guys on their team have better vision than Peyton Krebs on the ice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just think that we have seen him primarily play and like with not great players around him. You know, like he's played a lot with Okposo. He's played a lot with Girgensons. You know, a lot with Greenway, who I would like to see more from. I'm not guaranteeing that it's there, dude, but I just think if you can, you know, put a couple Jordan or a couple Martinooks around Peyton Krebs, you know, like with a little bit more offensive upside, I'm just not ready to turn the page on him yet. But if he were to be traded tonight, I'd sleep like a baby. Don't get me wrong. But three years, I'd even say I'd be fine. 3 years, $2 million a year for Peyton Krebs.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm kind of in the same boat. I wouldn't be mad about him being re-signed for a couple of years and being the fourth line center
Mm-hmm.
with hopefully some players that have better instincts and upside than Gergensons and Okposo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say. But again, if he's packaged with pick 11, 2025 first rounder, and you can upgrade a position significantly, sign me up. I'm here for it. Yeah,
100% in. But I feel like he gets a lot of hate, and I've just seen enough flashes of brilliance that I don't it's not a guy I'm actively looking to trade. I would love to see him in Buffalo. Completely fine if he's gone though. Yeah. So
yeah. Greenway, I agree with you. I want more from him, but I also don't think he's underperformed. I think he's the player that he was advertised as in Minnesota, and he's just that's who he is. What you see is what you get.
Joe Marino says it, dude. When someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
We, for some reason, had this brilliant idea that Don Granato was going to be able to unlock this offensive potential in Jordan Greenway.
Yeah,
I'd be fine if he was gone.
Yeah, yeah, he's I agree with you.
Yeah. So.
He's like you said, that's who he is. This is his last year on the deal. I mean, I don't mind him being here still. I think he's a big body. I mean, he can be somewhat effective, but
to me, he's a fourth line player. He's exactly what you want on your fourth line.
Yeah.
25 points a year, maybe, and a big ass body that skates well.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we try to put him in our top six. So.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be there. Well, and look, after the offseason moves, hopefully we get some talent and push him down into a fourth line role, and maybe he thrives there. I don't know.
Who knows, dude? Jake, any prevailing thoughts you want to get out there? I know I'm good, buddy.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Get offense deeper in the lineup. It's more important than having defense higher in the lineup. I've heard that quote before, and I love it. I'm gonna keep hammering that one.
Like that one.
And yeah, I think we said it last week. I think this is going to be a fascinating offseason. There's a lot of moves that could happen. There's a lot of moves that should happen, and we will see what Kevin Adams does because his seat is getting awfully, awfully hot, I imagine.
That it is. All right, brother.
We'll see. Oh, fuck, it's me. Take us out of here. Tom, we need you.
Tom, hurry up. Macy's fine.
There you go, Tom. Let's see. All right. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for spending some time with us this evening. Continue to watch, share an episode. Buff Pod. That's my pal Nigel. I'm Jake. We're sending you love wherever you are. Go Bills. Go Sabres. Let's go Buffalo.